live via the internet. Welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver internet via fiber optic, wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. Chat live with us weekly via ispradio.com every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And now a brief word from our sponsors. Link Technologies, providing ISP consulting, support, and hardware for wireless ISPs. TowerCoverage.com, providing online RF coverage maps. Mimosa Networks, providing high-density, high-bandwidth radio products. Advanced LLC, providing retail and wholesale advanced communication services by matching providers with your bandwidth needs. And by Sitel, providing reliability in surge suppression. And now your host for ISP Radio, Steve Grabiel and Dennis Burgett.
Well, welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. I'm Steve Grabiel, broadcasting from my office in Moriarty, New Mexico, and we've got Dennis Burgess with us, broadcasting and producing the show from St. Louis, Missouri, I presume his office. So what's been going on last week? Not a lot here. It's kind of dead, which is nice, like Dennis talked about last week. ISPs gearing up and putting up new gear and stuff. I've been doing the same thing. Got a tower I'm going to upgrade from a 802.11b to a 802 MIMO solution today. Hopefully I don't get blown off the tower, but that's what's going on here. Weather's pretty nice. Going to be a little breezy, but other than that, it's pretty nice. How about, what say you, Dennis? How's it going out there?
Oh, we've had a little bit of storms, a little bit of rain, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too horrible by any means, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no lightning yet?
Yeah, well, we had a little lightning last night, but most of the storms kind of dissipated and actually went north and south of us, of my actual location, so worked out kind of well for us, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But other than that, everything is going really good. The weather's finally changing. I can't wait, seed and do some seeding and strawing grass, get my grass growing a little better. Had some work done, and it's kind of a muddy mess whenever it rains, but you know how that works too.
Well, it's a new place you're moving into, right?
Yeah, well, it's about, I've almost been there almost 2 years now.
Huh.
Yeah, in April here, it'll be 2 years, so scary how time flies, right?
No kidding. So is there any news out there in the front? Any Title II stuff?
Yeah.
Some positive stuff, potential positive stuff that we'll be talking about, I'm sure, down the road. But you got anything?
Well, we got a couple things. So the very first one I want to point out, for those of you that are WISPA members, right here next Tuesday, WISPA will have a webinar, and that webinar is called the FCC's Open Internet, what it means for WISPs. And this is going to be a great session. This is a session that the WISPA Legal Counsel and the WISPA FCC group in committee is putting on. And it's really designed, and its goal is to, again, give information based on the open internet order that has occurred, the Title II, etc. What do we really have to do? Do we have to change things? What do we have to comply with? What is gray area? What is not? Based on the current rule set. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with both legislation or litigation, and all that's going on as we speak, as we assumed it would. But this is going to be a great webinar. I think it's at 1 p.m. Central. Don't quote me on that, but if you're a WISPA member, you can join it for free. If you're not a WISPA member, I'll be honest with you, this one little show, this one little webinar is probably, to be perfectly honest with you, is probably worth the price of admission by itself, because this gives you that, from an industry point of view, here's what you need to do, here's what you should be doing, and here's what you may have to do in the future. So if you're not a WISPA member, I definitely and highly recommend that you join up right away. You can go on WISPA.org and sign up online, I believe, and that way you can get in on that webinar as well. I believe there's also going to be a paper that will be distributed to WISPA members. Again, that is WISPA members only, so that's why I say you really need to join up and get that information. We actually have another interesting show, where we have a show talking about Title II the following Wednesday. So next Wednesday, that would be April 1st, we're going to have Brett Glass on talking about Title II and what it means for you. And then on Wednesday, April 15th, we are going to have Simon from PowerCode talking about the PowerCode solution. We are hoping that once we get the wonderful WISPA guys taken care of, they're done with their webinar on the 31st, maybe on the 8th is actually what I was really hoping. We can get one of their FCC guys in on the show and to really try to help us review and figure out how Title II will affect, and hopefully have time for some questions, etc. as well. So should be some great weeks, great few weeks shows, and definitely with the WISPA go-to meeting. I'm really looking forward to that because I think that's gonna, there's so much legal mumbo jumbo out there. It's really hard to know what it is, what's going on. As far as other things going on, we do have a trade show coming up. Let's see here. This is, I believe, on April 23rd and 24th down in Miami. We have the Microtech user meeting coming up. Should be a wonderful venue, little resort down there. I believe I got me a nice ocean view room. I should be nice and comfy, I hope. So that is definitely coming up as well. And don't forget, we have WISPApalooza at the end of the year that they have already started planning. If you're a WISPA member, of course, you can get on those agenda committees, etc. as well. So lots of things going on, just not a whole lot of, super interesting news. On my note, though, I did do a wonderful deployment with one of our customers this past week. And for those of you that are saying that IPv6 is not out there yet, I'll be honest with you, we are starting to see more and more and more IPv6 traffic. And we did a deployment with one of our customers. I'm going to try to pull this up here because I did the math. And we did a deployment where we issued out, I believe, 256/64s to each tower. Quite a few towers. And the big thing on it was the sheer scale of the IP rollout. I think we rolled out 281 sextrillion V6 IPs on his network. And yes, that is a actual large unit of measure. You can Google it. Actually, I had to Google it, so I knew what the heck it was. But the point being is that we were deploying a lot of V6. We are seeing more and more traffic. Our network is already V6. I sit there and I actually use Chrome a lot, and I have a little add-on, and it's called IPv4, and it's something dumb. It's a completely it's pointless for the most part, but what it does is in your address bar, it gives you basically a 4 or a 6 on the right side of the screen, right side of your address bar. And it's always interesting because, you go to Google. When I go to Google, I get IPv6. And when I go to Facebook, I get V6. When I go to linktext.net, which is one of our show sponsors in my company, you get V6. It's just kind of really interesting to see as you go out there more and more and more, you're seeing V6 traffic more and more and more. And the only way we're going to start using it, and the only way we're going to start seeing it, is by starting to deploy it. V6 is fairly easy to deploy. It's not overly complicated, other than it's huge. It's not just bigger. It's so massively huge. It's unbelievable. But that's what they had to do. Whenever we look at IPv4, /64, which is what we usually give to a customer, is more IPs than the entire IPv4 internet. Mm-hmm. And we're giving that to an individual residential customer. So we have lots and lots of options here. And definitely, as WISPs and as providers, I highly recommend you to start deploying V6 as quickly as possible. Because that is a big thing. I mean, getting your V6 deployment out there is very, very important, so that you can get out there and you can go, hey, we offer V6. We need to be able to offer that V6 so that we can get faster speeds, so that we can have those public IPs, and so that you, as a network operator, have the ability to say, I offer V6 where my competitors don't. Because there's a lot of government entities, etc., that's kind of a requirement. And it will become more and more and more of a requirement. And whenever you can go back and say, hey, 10 years ago I was offering V6, so we know what we're doing. It's definitely out there. So definitely start deploying that a little bit more.
And the rollout, you say, is relatively easy. I mean,
we did.
My network. It's a TIC network.
Gotcha. We did a rollout of 60 towers with V6, so everything was already running V4. We did a rollout of 60 towers in about 3 hours.
Wow.
That's how long it took to allocate the IPs, program the V6 infrastructure. In our case, we use OSPF, so set up OSPF, or what we call OSPF v3 for IPv6, to set up the dynamic routing protocol. And then pretty much everything else in this particular network is taken care of automatically. It is a PPOE network, so PPOE works really good. We push a /64 if they request it. We push a /64 to them, and they can put that 64 on their side so they can use it. We did not have any. We do have blocks available, so we could easily allocate larger blocks to like business customers if they need several networks. But in our particular case, it was just fine doing the /64. I think we allocated like 256 /64, so I think that's a 56, if I'm not mistaken, to every tower. And you can go out right now to Aaron and get pretty much a /32 very easily. It's not really hard to get. The requirements obviously for V6 is much less than the V4 IPs, But we're going to start seeing this more and more and more. And something else that kind of came up just recently, for those of you that don't have IPs, there's what we call 0.29 of IPv4 left with Aaron. So if you want to know how many that is, that's 668 /24s. Or only 26 /22s. So not a whole lot of them left. They're still going out and they're still allocating. I just got an allocation for a customer a couple days ago. Okay? So you can still get allocations. It's still out there. But this is one of those things that it's very, very important for you to roll out V6. I had something else that just came up recently was a customer got let me phrase this, an individual of that I know got an FBI request for a IP address, for information about an IP address. And the problem is that in this particular instance, that IP address is natted. So he had about 50 clients, so he can't give any information, okay? And the question comes down is that a requirement that we track connections through NAT so we can identify what customer is using what connection at any given time? And to my knowledge right now, and someone's probably going to correct me, but to my knowledge, no one, we don't have that requirement. That requirement is not there. But whenever we look at V6, as V4 is being depleted and is completely going away, we're going to be looking to V6 much more for that. So keep that in mind, is that as you go forward, you're probably going to see that more and more and more.
So your advice is to start migrating to a V6 network. And
you're not going to migrate.
You mentioned something interesting. How difficult is it to transition from a V4 to a V6 on a double natted private network?
Well, you're not going to transition from V4 to V6. In my professional opinion, we're probably going to sit with what we call dual stack, so both V4 and V6 simultaneously, because the protocols are not really compatible. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to run a dual stack network probably for the next 20 years. Okay,
gotcha.
I doubt that V4 is just not going to fall off the face of the planet. I don't believe it's going to fall off the face of the planet. However, we may get to that critical mass, and then all of a sudden there's no IPs available, no one can get it. We're going to see for the next couple of years people trading IPs and leasing IPs from other people. There's going to be this big market for it for a little while. But eventually that market's going to go away. There's just not enough resources for it. Mm-hmm. And eventually, if you're going to be a new provider, eventually all you're going to be able to get is V6.
Right.
Or NAT. So V6 is really going to be, all of a sudden we'll get that big push. And do I think you'll be off of V4? Probably not. You may. I could definitely see some people starting, in the next 10 years, starting to say, we give you a V6 address, and if you need V4, we charge for that.
Right. Gotcha.
But, that way they don't, and there is a carrier-grade NAT where you can take a V6 and you can NAT it to the V4 network. I see that as being something that will also occur as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's going to take time. It is coming. And the only reason why I say it now is we get these people that are starting to roll out new networks that are wanting to expand, and they are wanting and have the ability to put more time into their network to find the correct solutions. And V6 is one of those things. You need to put that time into it to get it rolled out.
Yeah, especially on a brand new network for sure.
Yep.
Well, is that pretty much all the news?
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, lots of good information. Let's see here. Just a quick recap. We got the MUM coming up end of April. I believe it's the 27th and 28th. I'll just double check here just to make sure. I'm sorry, 23rd, 24th. Way off. And then we have Brett Glass next week, and then on the April 15th we have Power Code on ISP Radio here as well. So lots of good stuff coming up as well.
Well, at Wispalooza last year, I was walking around and noticed a company kind of in a cubbyhole at the show, and they had a very interesting antenna. And I went and talked to them briefly, but they were kind of, even though they were in a cubbyhole, they were swamped with people. And I reached out to these guys. The company's name is ET Industries, and on today's show we have Thomas Ekonomu and Stephen Jalil with ET Industries. You guys there?
Yes, we are. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Dennis.
You bet. We appreciate you guys being on the show. So, like I said, when I walked by there, you had your antenna array sitting there, and it looked funky. Honestly, it looked weird. But as we were talking earlier on the show, going to a Wispalooza, you're dealing with people that are willing to give the weird a try. So tell us a little bit about ET Industries, where you guys started from, and where you're at, and how you can help improve WISPs looking to try something better to make their network better. Go ahead.
Sure, Steve. This is Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Company was formed in 1996, and over the course of its almost 19-year history now, majority of the work that the company performed was for the defense industry. We've done a lot of communications and direction finding and all kinds of interesting platforms for defense, both for airborne and ground. And maybe I've been with the company about 6 years now. When I joined, it was just starting to look at introducing its technology to the commercial industries, particularly at the time WiMAX. And we spent some time talking to operators, both here in the United States and around the world, as to what their issues were, what they would like to see in a system versus what's currently on the market now. And our approach by doing that was really to tailor a solution to what the needs were of the operators that were using these systems, versus us to saying that, well, here's a system, throw it up, it does what it does, good luck with it. And that's why when we explain who we are, we describe ourselves as an engineering house first, and we provide custom solutions to both defense and commercial customers. Specific to the commercial industry, and what you saw at the Wispapalooza was our beamforming network with our antenna array. And our multi-beam system, originally designed for a defense program, had multiple beams that monitored multiple incoming targets for our defense system. And we realized that this system and this kind of beamforming network could be used in the wireless communications industry to address certain issues, primarily spectrum limitations. If someone had a 10 megahertz license in a license band, we can take that 10 megahertz and turn it into 80 megahertz from one system. And in a 90-degree footprint, we can basically increase your capacity by 16 times. Now, specific to the unlicensed industry, which is why we were at Wispapalooza, although you have a huge bandwidth that you contend with. You do have a number of operators that are using it, and it's growing even more congested than ever before as licensed operators are starting to offload some of their traffic to the unlicensed bands. So there's a lot of users now getting in, and what a beamforming network like ours can provide you with is, if you have one tower and you're getting interference in a certain portion of the spectrum that you're operating, well, you can still provide the same capacity at that site by using only a portion of your spectrum, and the system a single system will probably equate to almost 6 single sector systems that you currently have. So we could provide you with 12 sectors from one system covering 90 degrees. So you would have 6 in one polarization and 6 in another. So if you had a radio that gave you 500 capacity maximum, we can give you 8,000. So
wow.
The channel planning to limit your interference, maintaining or increasing your capacity, if that's what the need is. And again, going back to what I said earlier, is that we can customize a system to meet specifically what your needs are.
Right. So we were talking earlier on the show about the system. It's a passive system. What do you utilize, or what do your customers utilize to drive this antenna array? To me, what I got from listening to you at Wispalooza was that you guys are primarily antenna engineers that have got it right. What drives your system, and what client equipment works off of your equipment?
Well, that's the best part about it. Because it's passive, it's interoperable with any radio that you want to use. So some people would use Ubiquiti, some people would use Cambian, others systems that we've done with Alvarian systems for the licensed bands. So we're interoperable with any system. The limitations of our system is really the limitations of what your radios are.
So let me ask this question. This is, again, technical, but we're talking about a beamforming antenna, a passive system. First off, what are the components? So I have a Ubiquiti or a Microtech access point, 2 chains or 3 chains, okay, and I'm running, let's just say I'm running in a 40 megahertz spectrum, a chunk of spectrum. What components do I hook up? Is it just the antenna, or is there more than that? And then technically, why is this better than a standard 2x2 or 3x3 MIMO antenna?
Well, the system itself is comprised of the antenna array and 2 beamforming networks. The beamformers, the way we phrase them, each one handles 1 polarization. Okay? Now, what that does is it allows you to connect any radio that you want. And let's say for the Wi-Fi system that we showed at the Wispapalooza, that was a 6 beam system that provided 12 sectors. So technically, you can connect 12 radios to that system. So that your radios would be connected to the beamformers, and the beamformers connected to the antenna. And then you would radiate the signals that you want. So you would end up with 12 radios, and again, if your radios have 500 maximum capacity times 12, you have 6,000 now is your capacity from that system covering 90 degrees.
Okay, so what you're doing is we are taking a single sector, we are channelizing it into ultra small chunks, as you said, 12, 15 degree beam widths. Right. And then what you're doing is you're bringing in multiple radios operating on the same band but different channels, correct?
Right. You said you had 40 megahertz was the example, so you can either do 4 10 megahertz channels or 2 20 megahertz channels.
Okay, but that is normal. The example I'm using is we would have a single 40 megahertz channel per radio. Okay.
You can do UMTS style, yes.
Okay, and the channel doesn't matter. This is not going to give us 1+1, or is not going to give us channel reuse. It is simply giving us the ability to basically have higher dense applications in a single sector.
Well, if you, let's say you did 20 megahertz channel sizes, and you now have, with the system I described, you have 12 beams. So you do F1, F2, and then F1, F2 again, F1, F2 again, and you would basically repeat that pattern 6 times. So you would end up really with 120 megahertz.
Off of one radio?
No, off of one system.
Yeah, it's six radios, one antenna is basically what it is.
Well, 12 radios, one antenna.
Okay, 12 radios, one antenna.
I would like to add, if we're looking at a 90-degree footprint with 6 beams, you would, if you want to utilize a MIMO, exploiting the polarization diversity, since it's a dual polarized system.
Yep.
So in one channel you can have let's say one beam, you can have one radio connected, and if it wants to use the MIMO B capability or MIMO A, you would have just one radio on that channel. But if you don't want to use the MIMO capability through the polarization diversity, you would have 2 radios per channel. So it's either 12 or 6.
Okay, so you would normally, if we're using dual chains, so we're using MIMO, so two antennas per, usually horizontal and vertical.
Correct.
You're going to have a 12 sectors, but it's actually 6 sectors, 1 horizontal, 1 vertical, in one antenna. So you have 12 connectors. Each, you would have 6 radios with 2 cables each, and they just go into the antenna, correct?
That is true. It actually goes into the beamforming network, which is coupled with our antenna array. Correct.
Okay. Now, what does the beamforming network give us, other than I mean, whenever I look at it, as I look at, I have 12 antennas. I have 12 antennas on the sector. Basically, I have 6 vertical, 6 horizontal, and those come back to the beamforming network box, and I have 12 cables going into it. What does the beamforming network give me over just using, let's just say I went out and had custom-made 12-degree sectors, and I put up 6 sectors. What is the difference between having 6 12-degree sectors and one beamforming system with 6 dual-pole antenna elements?
Okay. Now, the idea behind ETI's design is, if we're looking at a phased array antenna system, it's coupled with two beamforming networks per polarization, and through our design of our beamforming network, we control the amplitude and phase of each signal, allowing an optimized radiation pattern, which can either be, it depends on our customers. If we want to suppress the side lobes of each individual lobe across the pattern to mitigate the interference. Like, for example, there's a highly metropolitan areas where you see a lot of interference. So side lobes need to be suppressed to a level of 20 dB and greater to avoid these kind of interfering signals. So basically, the architecture of the beamforming network it's a network that controls the phase and amplitude of a signal to give you a radiation pattern that's optimized. If you put 6 single sector antennas across 90 degrees, you're not going to get an optimized radiation pattern with a specific beam crossings and specific side lobe levels.
And then that's what your product mitigates, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. We have a question from an admirer of yours, Thomas. They asked, do you need a special license for these antennas?
No.
Because from what I understand, this is just a passive system that you plug your own licensed or unlicensed gear into. That's what I'm gleaning from what you're telling me. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, it's just an antenna system.
Yep.
Right. So it's just optimizing the antenna system. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and for those who have to actually pay rental space, having one antenna panel that you pay rent for that actually gives you the equivalent of 6 antennas, but even better the performance, it's a cost savings there as well.
Right, and performance alone. Huh.
Yeah, and consider your capacity issues. Granted, some of the areas may be a little bit more rural. You don't have the capacity issues the same way. But again, as you're growing your network, isn't it easier to just add on a new subscriber versus having to get permission to have access to the tower or the water tower or wherever your systems or your network is deployed, and have to get up there, hire somebody? They have to go up there, rig it, put it in. So it takes time. This is a system that once you put it up, again, once you tap out, if you tap out on your capacity, that means you're doing very, very well.
Well, of course, yes. Dennis, do you have a question?
I'm just looking at some of the specs. One of the questions I would have is on the specifically in the 365 antenna systems. There's a item that says sector peak angles from. Well, that's a peak angle. I apologize. No, it's still the gain. The gain's 22 dB. I mean, is that perfectly at the center of each lobe? And then and so that's one question. And then the other question is, let's say I have a beamforming system such as yours set up. Let's say, though, I don't need the additional capacity. So I'm using your beamforming to optimize my network as much as possible. But on the flip side of that, I also don't need the capacity yet. So let's say I need a 90-degree sector, okay? And what I really need is I need to start with one radio system on the 90-degree sector, and then I need to later on be able to add another or several more systems. Is that possible with your system or not?
That's a great question, Dennis. The beauty of the system being passive, and it's also very flexible. You can start off with one 90-degree beam by combining the 6 beams. So you'd have an azimuth coverage of 90 degrees from one beam, and in the vertical beam with about 11 degrees. Now, as you progress with your business and start getting more customers, you can break up that radiation pattern. Optimally, you can have 6 15-degree beams, but you can have a combination of beams within that 90-degree pattern. You can have 2 30-degree beams, okay, and 2 15s.
Now,
it's a matter of your customer base and what you want to do, but the flexibility can go from one 90-degree beam to 6 15-degree beams.
And the other beauty of it is, Dennis, is that we actually design and manufacture the power combiners.
Okay, is that what you just said? Is that a function of a switch? Is that a function? What would I need to change out to move from a single 90 to say three radios?
You need to either add a power combiner. So let's say you wanted to make it 3 30-degree sectors, then you would have 3 power combiners that would allow you to combine specific beams to achieve that. And as you continue to grow, you would swap those out and then add finally a single beamformer or 2 beamforming networks. Okay.
So the example would be, to start out with, we would have something like a 6-way power divider, which is, I would need 2 of those, 1 for each polarity, and I'd have 1 radio with 2 radio outputs going into 2 power dividers, and then those power dividers have 6 cables each going to the actual sector itself. And that would give me my 90. And then later on, whenever I needed less, I would just swap out the power dividers for however many I would need. So if I needed to go to 3 sectors or 3 radios, I would just use 2-way power dividers on each radio.
That is correct, Dennis.
Okay, gotcha. I'm just trying to make sure I understand how it works, so that everybody, because if I understand it, I hope everybody else is following. If I don't understand it, then I don't. Then obviously we have, and other people, I'm assuming, it doesn't understand it either.
And just to plug our company a little bit, is that we design and have the capabilities of doing not only 3-way, 6-ways, but we've done 9-ways and 10-way power dividers for different applications.
Okay. And whenever we say power dividers, is that does that equally distribute the power across all the sectors so that we're not getting... Normally, whenever we say a power divider, the example would be I have two 90-degree sectors, and let's just say they're single pole. And if I divide my power into it, then it's exactly that. My 30 dB output now becomes 15 dB. I'm sorry, it's not 15, but it's cut in half. So 27 dB of output on each. Is that still the case, or does your power combiners, splitters actually do the amplification as well?
Well, in our power dividers, we have equal power splits. You're going to have a little bit of loss. You're going to have a bit of loss in the power divider, which is going to decrease the gain by a minimal amount, probably 1 dB.
But as far as the actual power output, so you're saying if I split it 4 times, I'm only going to lose 1 dB output on the actual antenna itself.
Yes, it'll be even.
Evenly distributed across all sectors, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If it's 3-way or 6-way, it'll be divided evenly.
So what I know someone's going to ask this, and if they haven't asked it on the chat yet, which they haven't, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask. So let's say I need a product like this. I don't want to sit there and say specifics, but I would like to hit the 3536 bank. What is the average cost that someone's going to have to pay for a sector of some type, as well as a system?
The system that we demonstrated at Wispapalooza that we showed, which was the antenna panel and the 2 beamforming networks, is $6,000.
Gotcha.
And before the show, Thomas, before the show, you were mentioning that you guys are working on leasing solutions and the like, but you also mentioned something interesting that piqued my interest when we were talking about you being on the show a while back, is something to the effect of if you've got a group of ISPs in a specific geographical area, it's possible to set up this system in both companies to derive income from something, a venture to help shoulder the burden of that cost. And $6,000 to me is not too terribly expensive. I mean, that could be easily cash flowed into, I'm sure, most ISPs. But was what I just mentioned, is that kind of true, or am I just off base?
Yeah, I was just about to get into that. Is that at the show, and as I mentioned to you, is one of the things that we propose to some of the people who stop by the booth is that if you're in a particular area and you have another WISP that you have done work with, I see some of the emails going back and forth about how, and I think that's one of the reasons that gave us the idea, is that we're very impressed with the WISP community on how willing they are to share information with one another, exchange experiences, and make suggestions on how to fix their networks. And some of them may be, direct competitors, but you're willing to help each other and move things forward. So in that conversation, we said, listen, if there are WISPs in a particular area and you're willing to arrange for a few days, a week, however long you want, we would be willing to do a demonstration for as many people that want to attend as possible. At the same time, if at the end of the demonstration, half the WISPs there, or all of them, decided that they want to buy even a single system, what we would do is we would pool everyone's order as if it was one, and whatever price point break that we would be able to provide, let's say somebody who was buying 10 systems, everyone would share in that price point break. Now, also, since Wispapalooza, we've been meeting with people and talking to people about are they familiar with the wireless industry? Do they know what's going on? And would they consider providing finance through our company so that we can allow potential customers to buy the equipment, pay it along as their cash flow permitted, And recently, we found a company, NB Lease LLC. Michael Berg is the president and owner of the company. And he and I sat down, and I explained to him what we were trying to do. And he says, yeah. He says, not only would I offer to a potential customer the ability to finance a purchase of your equipment, but if they were in the process of expanding their network, we could roll in the entire purchase of what they were doing at the time into a single transaction.
Well, that's good. You guys have found the way to make it reasonable so where an ISP could cash flow that into their existing setup. The technology just sounds pretty good, getting more bang for your buck for less radio equipment, I would think.
Yeah, and again, we're structuring this way because we want to be in it for the long haul. We've not been a company that has sold anything defense-wise or commercial-wise, and we've walked away after the acquisition saying, okay, we're done, call it a day, move on to the next one. We live and breathe what we produce every day. If there's an issue, if something's not working right, if you have a suggestion about something that we have and you say, well, I like it and everything, but this is awkward, that's awkward, it's difficult to work with. I mean, even now, we took some of the comments that the WISP made at the WISPapalooza, and we're redesigning certain things to make it that much easier for someone to put up the antenna, to put up the system, to operate it, to create a much more friendly interaction with what we're designing. So we're very big on listening to what our customers, or in this case, the industry, has to say as far as criticizing or suggesting on how to improve what we're providing.
Right. You guys mentioned before the show that you've got a customer on the West Coast that's utilizing your system. Can you tell us a little bit about the successes of that?
Sure. I'm going to let Steve give you that.
Okay. So our partner in San Francisco has deployed a system that's optimally, it's a 6-beam system in a 90-degree footprint, allowing for 6 dual polarized sectors. The beamforming in network gives you actually 8 beams in 120 degrees, which our customer is using. In this deployment, we are seeing some pretty amazing performance, we would say, because the radios are modulating signals at about 256 QAM at 3.5 miles from the tower in a highly noisy environment, giving us about 130 megabits per second aggregate within those channels. Our customer is very happy with those results because, there's results that he did not expect 3.5 miles from the Sutro Tower. Also, we would like to add that because of the narrow sectors, experimentally we've seen a drop in the noise floor within those channels as opposed to a 65 to 90 degree channel, about 10 dB drop in the noise floor, and the data rates and the SNR, the signal to noise ratio at about 3.5 miles is, it's enough to provide a 256 QAM modulation. So we're very happy with those results.
Right, and that's true throughput, right? Not like air rates that I see in some products.
Excuse me?
That's the true throughput, not what we call air rates.
No, that is the actual throughput that the customer is receiving within a channel at 3.5 miles from the Sutro Tower. It's about 130 megabits aggregate.
Wow.
It's a 20 megahertz channel. We're exploiting MIMO-B. So.
Right. So your antenna array has increased the noise floor, thus giving you a greater spread between signal to noise.
Correct.
And that's just strictly from the ET Industries array.
Yes, it's because it's mainly due to our high gain as well as our optimized radiation pattern.
Gotcha.
And as Steve said, is that the system is the exact same system that we had displayed at the WISPapalooza. And our recommendation to anyone is that to use it as a 90-degree footprint and use 6 dual polarized beams creating 12 sectors, and they said, no, we need 100-degree coverage, so they took off the terminations on the beamforming network that we typically terminate, and they expanded the footprint to 120 degrees, and the results even exceeded our expectations.
Right, like we mentioned earlier in the show, if you give a WISP something, they'll squeeze every possible ounce of bandwidth out of the product that they can. And it sounds like it was successful for you guys.
Yeah, and we're waiting for them to continue their current field trials, because we would like to have them incorporate a second system into that network tower on Sutro Tower, and start getting some other configurations. But like you said, they're squeezing so much out of this. The president of Unwired, Peter Kranz, has told us that no, we're not done squeezing this system out the way it is right now, and so we're very excited, and we noticed that, and we met Unwired and Peter Kranz through the Animal Farm Users Group, and I noticed recently on some of the email chains that some of those members have also now joining WISPA, and which is great. Because, again, it seems that like minds are starting to share more and more information, and we're hoping that what we're doing with Unwired is something that we can do with more of the members at WISPA.
So that system that Unwired bought, was that the $6,000 setup?
Yes.
Okay. And just to go back on a brief on your history, you guys have developed all this stuff basically for military, and you mentioned that it's all hardened stuff for military applications, but you're bringing it to the commercial side. Is that kind of
yes
what we're getting if we were to buy a system from you? It's a proven, tried military system that's hardened for those kinds of environments. Is that
yes?
Is that fair to say?
Yes. We pride ourselves on our engineering capabilities, and at the end of the day, given some of the environments that we're, just to give you just a quick idea, is a project that we did. We spent quite a bit of time on it, but it was for an airborne application, and at 70,000 feet, the system was supposed to handle 500 watts of power, and at that altitude, given the power that was being put into it, it was a lot greater than that because of what's kicked back. And at the end of the day, just to see how sturdy and rugged our system was, they ended up putting 2 kilowatts of power through it and ran it for a half hour continuously. And when we took it apart, there wasn't a scorch mark on it. It was brand new. So we really, really take the time to do this, and we're very excited about getting feedback from other WISPA operators in different scenarios in different parts of the country, just to see, maybe we're missing something, and maybe there's something else that we have to consider as far, because some of the information that I've seen on some of the emails going back and forth are dealing with just nature that maybe other OEMs aren't considering, and that's fog or change in temperature in certain areas due to crop fields and things like that. Things that obviously as a non-engineer I wasn't really aware of, but we're taking all this information as much as we can digest and saying, have we looked at this scenario? Have we considered this? And we really would like to get out there and deploy some more, even if it's just on a trial basis right now, for anyone who's willing to take a shot at us and look at, and we can share with anyone offline, not to take up too much of your time, whatever results we're getting in San Francisco, and anything else that they might want to get in depth with us.
Now, let me ask one more question. So, benefits to WISPs are obviously increased noise floor for their own customers. Is it almost being a better steward of the existing spectrum that we operate in to necessarily utilize an ET Industries setup? Do you kind of get what I'm saying? Is it?
Yeah.
One provider is not going to use it, but I were to say my competitor is not going to use it, but I am. Am I being a better steward of the spectrum in my area and helping him out almost by by not stepping on his stuff.
Yeah, I see the point that you're making. At the end of the day, your interference of his and vice versa, you're eliminating yours.
My own. Okay.
Are you helping him out? Are you helping him out indirectly? To some degree, but at the same time, he's going to be limited in his capacity, regardless of what he does. He's not going to have the same results with what he's using as what you're using. And one of the point based on that is that if, let's say, there were two neighboring WISPs, and there was a portion of the region where you share a fine line, the system can be utilized that half the beams go in one direction, half the beams go in another direction, so that two WISPs can actually use the same network.
That's the fascinating thing to me.
Because I would think at the end of the day, if to grow your respective businesses, if that you're finding a neighboring WISP or WISP in a town in a state just right across the state line, and you can devise a network so that you both benefit from, but you share the cost. I would think at some point in time, a merger, an acquisition, or even a continued purchase of other WISPs and incorporating and expanding that network footprint is possible. And sometimes it's not just a question of adding different equipment or adding more of our equipment. It's a question of repositioning it so that saying, you know what, I have a tower now in this location. So if I move it over there, I can still cover this area, and I eliminate my cost, my maintenance, and my expenses. But at the same time, I'm not giving anything up in service and capacity.
Right. Well, Dennis, do you have any more questions? I think Thomas and Steve have answered all my questions on a fascinating product that I'm probably going to try out.
Yeah, they have answered all my questions. I think we're really good. I'm going to just check the chat just to make sure that there's nothing there. But other than that, I'm really good.
So basically, we answered the question of if there's any special license, and no, we're mounting up the existing stuff that we pretty much use already. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just a more custom engineered antenna system.
Yeah, and we had done a trial with the same system in Sydney, Australia, near the airport, and at 20 kilometers, we were 10 dBi better than the system they were currently using at the time.
And was that just a single MIMO antenna?
Yeah, at the time, because we were actually the subcontractor for the radio provider that was running the network for this WISP, and we were just there to show what the system capability was. And at that distance near the airport, talking about radar interference, and we were clear as a bell.
Wow. Well, unless you guys have anything else you'd like to tell us. Tell us how we get in contact with you. If this piqued someone's interest and they want to contact you guys, how do we go about doing that?
Sure. Our company website is www.etiworld.com. Steve can be reached at jaleel.s@etiworld.com. And I'm going to make it difficult for everybody. My email address is teconomo@etiworld.com. But I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of our involvement in WISPA. We're looking forward to working with everyone, including yourselves, and we will have product announcements and trial results if that's acceptable. And we would welcome any other questions or dialogue that anybody has out there to learn more about our system and how we can get involved and help you out.
Right, and I'm looking at your business card. You mind if I give out your telephone number?
Please do.
Folks, if this was of interest to you, please get in contact with these guys. To me, it sounds like they've got a very interesting product that could probably revolutionize a lot of our industry. The telephone number is 973-394-1719. That's 973-394-1719. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up the show. Dennis, you got anything else?
Nope, we are good.
Well, we appreciate Thomas Economou and Steve Jaleel with ETI Industries for being on the show. And guys, if this was of interest to you, which it should be, give these guys a call and try out their gear. Like I said, it piqued my interest for sure. Well, with that, thank you for listening, and have a great week. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packets as fast as you can. Good luck and Godspeed.